the initial idea for the film, I was maybe 10 years ago, I saw an article online with a link to a website that said you could go talk to an artificial intelligent program. And so I went to the website and had a chat with this, this program basically. But for the first 20 seconds, it's like, "Hi, how are you? Good. How are you doing? Fine. What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm just talking to you. You wanted to talk to me." And like had this sort of like banter. And I was like, for like the first 20 seconds, like this thing is talking to me. It was funny. It was responding. And then after about 20 seconds, I realized it was just sort of parroting things that I'd heard before. And just a very cleverly written program, but like a parrot just didn't know what it was saying.
Right.
And then it sort of devolved into just repeating stuff like Siri. So that was the initial idea. It was like, what if a man falls in love with an artificial intelligent operating system? Just sort of based on that sort of buzz I got in that first 20 seconds. And then I didn't really think about it for a while. I went off and made Where the Wild Things Are. But during Where the Wild Things Are, I started coming back to that idea more, thinking about it as a relationship movie in a way to explore relationships. And then I think that's when it sort of turned into this, from this sort of high concept idea to actually being about something and being something that I got really excited about writing notes on. And
there's so many hilarious scenes that just jumped out right off the page. So we always, it was never really, we always just kind of, if a scene was funny, we always just kind of went for the comedy of the scene. And then luckily our actors were so good that they could kind of, from that, bring it back down to a sadder moment or a more melancholy moment. And I mean, there's obviously humor and sadness and melancholy. And so I think, with Joaquin and Spike's voice as the alien child, we were able to, just.
That was my voice.
Oh, they knew that, right?
Did anyone know that? Oh, okay. That was my cameo. Actually, when we were writing, I couldn't stop doing it. No. It was like Natalie, who's one of our producers, would be at my house with me as we were writing, and I would just it was so fun to be that character, and I'd be like, "Natalie, I'm hungry. Feed me. Order food. When are we eating?"
And when we were editing, you would do that.
Oh yeah, I would do that.
He would give us notes as alien child.
Yeah. It was a way to release my anxiety. It just seemed appropriate, to when he's, in that place where he's in that place in his life where doesn't have the energy to be social. He's heartbroken and just doesn't want to put that kind of, deal with people in that way. Just seemed like the kind of thing seemed particularly right to go home and play video games alone. And and then in terms of making that game, it just I think. I'd love to make. I don't know. It was like my chance to get to make a video game. I've never made a video game, and actually I really overwrote the video game. Like there's probably another 6 pages of story to that video game that we didn't even shoot because it's a whole story about these aliens that invade Earth, take over the planet, imprison us all, and we're in jail, and we realize. This is the whole introduction to the video game. It was this entire thing about this. The aliens have this collective consciousness, and we have to go to beat the aliens. We have to go inside the psyche of the alien, and then they're like, we've selected a psychological warfare soldier, and you are that soldier, and then you get launched into this game.
God.
And I think the challenge every step of the way was to could we pull off a relationship movie where one person's not on screen? And I think that was I don't know, you could probably speak to that.
Yeah, we always just, we wanted to, Eric and I and Spike, we all just talked about approaching it as if he's having a relationship with a woman he's just met. So it's not about this other being or this device. So, one of our challenges was always, how do we edit a dialogue scene with 2 people, but there's only 1 person on camera? And we had all this beautiful language, all this beautiful footage that we could cut to of kind of atmospheric and beautiful tonal imagery, and we used a lot of it. But we kind of realized that if we just hung on Joaquin, he could just kind of take you through an entire scene without needing to cut away to what he's thinking about in his mind, because you could just, there's a scene where he's talking to her in bed, and he's talking about, he has dreams about his ex-wife, and we have all this amazing footage of the ex-wife and him, and we would put it on there, but we'd realize that we could just
Yeah, just stay on
on
Joaquin.
Joaquin, and he would just kind of get you through it without needing to cut away from him.
When I sat down to write, I'd already made notes. I probably had like 50 pages of notes of like, and that's kind of the fun part is writing notes. Like it can be anything. You don't have to edit yourself. It's like any idea is like a good idea, and like you don't have to worry about how it's actually going to fit into the movie. So I'd had like 50 or 60 pages of notes, and then I sat down, and I'd say the first draft took about 5 months to get through that. And as I was writing it, I left a lot of stuff out. Other ideas like that video game idea, or just ideas of operating systems in society, and like sort of. I just kept going back towards the intimate and going back towards Theodore and Samantha's relationship, and then probably for maybe next 10 months after that, I wrote more drafts. I just kept writing until we, had to sort of lock. We never considered making her appear real, but we did consider, in the same way we have those visual fragments that are his memory, or visual fragments that are the dust, or the things he's looking at. Like that's one of the things Jeff was talking about, like how much how much should we be on his face versus how much should we be on what he's seeing or thinking or remembering. And we actually shot sort of his imagination where you never really got to see her. And it was just not that interesting. It was even as I was shooting, I was like, I didn't have that emotional connection to it. I was like, that everything else I'm feeling, like you're filming Joaquin, you're feeling, even the dust, I got that sort of, again, a buzz from like, oh, this is exciting. But I never get, like on set, I didn't get that feeling from the woman that we shot, and of course we cut it out really early on.
Yeah, and it didn't. Scarlett did such a great job becoming this person that you didn't want to. We always talked about you didn't want to see a woman in a blue dress with blonde hair, or you didn't.
Yeah, you didn't want
it was whoever you were imagining.
You want to have your own relationship with the image you create. And when we were in pre-production, we started thinking about how we were going to create future LA, and I was excited by the idea of collaging two cities together, and so we ended up going to Shanghai and using Shanghai, very specific curated areas of Shanghai with very specific curated areas of Los Angeles. And I think it was the idea we were trying to make this very warm, tactile world with the materials and the fabrics and the woods, and create this world that felt like this utopic world, that everything's nice and everything's comfortable, yet even in this world where you're seemingly getting everything you need and having this nice life, there's still loneliness and longing and isolation and disconnection. And if I had to define what I'm picturing, it would be utopic, and that sort of started this train of thought, which was sort of where we ended up, and making this world that's comfortable and nice and convenient, and much like our world, but just a heightened version of our world, where everything is getting nicer as the years go, and there's more design and there's more convenience, and our technology is making things easier, but there's still this loneliness and longing.
Change.